Anyway, it gives me great pleasure to have Damien Magee address us on the history of the Exchange Hotel.
Thank you very much, Brian, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for your introduction. It's only by chance that I see you all here tonight. I was casually walking down Murray Street in late February or March when I bumped into Brian, who asked if I'd be interested in presenting about the history of the Exchange Hotel to the Gawler history team. Of course, I just turned around and said yes flippantly. As time wore on, tonight has quickly approached. Initially, I looked upon tonight with a little unease and a little trepidation, as most people don't like public speaking generally. And I'm also very, very aware that most of the people in this room know much more about the Exchange Hotel than I ever would, and considering I'm in there every day. The process leading to tonight has indeed led me to further appreciate not only the Exchange Hotel's history, but all of Gawler's history with great sincerity. Already I walk out tonight knowing much more than I previously did, and so I'm already richer and grateful for the experience. I've taken the opportunity that tonight presents to return to being a student, which should be a worry for everyone here because I was a terrible student. Tonight's presentation will take you through a brief rundown of the Gawler hotels and where the Exchange Hotel sits as the new kid on the block, despite being 150 years old. We will have the chance to peruse some of the very early photos of the hotel, most of which now have been very well documented and explored. Still, despite being seen many times, I'm sure you're all like myself and view with fascination and wonder each time they are viewed, truly wondering what life was like back then. Tonight I'd also like to focus on 4 publicans and moreover 1 or 2 of their stories, as to me they are the true history of the Exchange Hotel. The Exchange Hotel, despite being a beautiful and rich in the building with its antiquity, the true stories, and what I'm going to go through some of the stories tonight will be fantastic, and to have Di Fraser here is excellent. The Exchange Hotel has always been unique, and indeed continues to be so, and I look forward to sharing this a little more, including some photos which I took down in the basement this week of the baker's oven and the kitchen oven. I'll also share some photos of the recent major refurbishment, and finally I end the presentation with a little commentary on the proposed future of the hotel. As I mentioned before, I'm a mere student tonight. Most of the data, stories and photos have been sourced elsewhere and provided to me. Firstly, the Gawler Now and Then website is a resource to behold. What a fantastic source of knowledge for our community. I've enjoyed viewing and using the photos provided. I've also found Brian and Tom to be most helpful, continuing to send me pieces of history which I had never seen before. Thank you, Brian. Stan Ralston is obviously a walking encyclopedia when it comes to Gawler's history, and his 2 books, Glimpses of Gawler, have given me great insight into what everyday life may have been like in previous generations. Diane Fraser has known me since I was 14 years old.
Oh.
She obviously knew I was struggling to put together worthy content to address you tonight, so her appearance at the hotel to share some photos and talk about her and Scott's time was most welcome, and I'm tremendously grateful to her. Thank you, Di. Her intimate knowledge of the hotel and its history is unsurpassed, and I hope I can do her proud tonight and properly represent the lineage of the Exchange Hotel publicans. I became publican of the Exchange Hotel in 2012. Considering the hotel is now 150 years old, I am but a tiny sliver of the hotel's history, being a custodian of the licence for a mere 3% of the time. I did dip my toe in the water of publican life with a friend in 2004, but this didn't bode well, and I well and truly learned of the adage that friends and business do not mix. This was, however, a great learning time for myself, and I continue to use those times as motivation to ensure that the hotel business is successful moving forward. I had and continue to have a deep affinity with the hotel. I fondly remember catching the train after school from Blackfriars Primary School to Gawler and seeing my dad at the hotel enjoying his beer, well, I must say multiple beers, after a long week of police work. At the time, I was being shoved in the corner with a glass of raspberry and a packet of chicken chips. So as far as I'm concerned, it was also my perfect end to the week. Indeed, my first paid work was at the Exchange when my father volunteered me for 2 weeks to help pack and stack cartons of beer that would arrive for the very busy bottle shop Christmas period. I was in heaven, doing some work for a hotel at 15 years of age, when Scott Fraser gave me 2 or 3 $20 notes, my love affair with the exchange was born. Who would know that 25 years later I'd own the business and oversee a $1 million redevelopment? First licensed in 1868, the Exchange Hotel, at 150 years young, is the newest of Gawler hotels and the youngest sibling in the history of all Gawler hotels. Some would say we're the problem child then and we're the problem child now. Indeed, by 1850, Gawler already had 6 hotels and only a population of 1,000 people. Gawler was quickly developing between 1850 and 1870, with many new industries developing. Gawler had foundries and workshops supplying agricultural and mining equipment, and rich farming soil was being discovered north of Gawler, so equipment needed to be made, along with a town boasting many flour mills. These burgeoning businesses, of course, meant Gawler had great opportunities, leading to many of the population wanting to spend their time and money at the public houses that frequented the area. It seems Gawler's reputation of being a town full of hotels has been with us since its inception. Mr. Theodore Neese was the first licensee of the Exchange Hotel. Information on Theodore and his history I've been unable to find, but records show he held the license for 4 or 5 years. The picture now shown is one of the earliest pictures of the hotel, depicting only one story. This picture seems strange to me, as the double story you see before you today looks very much like an original build. We will quickly take the opportunity now to gloss over the town's other hotels to demonstrate where the Exchange sits and the timeline of the licensed public houses, which are obviously called pubs for short. The Golden Fleece Hotel was Gawler's first hotel, which opened in 1839 and is the grandfather of all Gawler hotels at 179 years old. The hotel is currently operated by Matthew Binns and Oliver Porter, who are very established publicans of note in Adelaide. Matthew Binns, the half owner of the hotel, is also the vice president of the current vice president of the Australian Hotels Association. The Bushies, as it is affectionately known by my generation, was first granted its licence in 1840 and is 178 years old. The hotel is currently operated by Justin and Kylie Irving, who have held the licence for 12 or 13 years. The Gawler Arms, or simply the Arms, was first licensed in 1848 and is 170 years old. The hotel was currently held by the Gianetto family. Indeed, this 1848 to 1858 period saw an explosion of hotel licences granted in Gawler. So in that 10-year period, 11 new hotel licences were granted to Gawler, which is amazing. Slide 9 is the Kingsford Hotel, and we welcome Phil Harnett here tonight, son of Tony. Was known as the Globe Hotel and has often been considered one of Gawler's most famous pubs. I believe Tony has addressed this group before. Its licence was first granted in 1851 and it is 167 years old. The hotel was held by the Harnett and George families, who are iconic in the region, originally seeing business and community success as pharmacists. The Southern Hotel was first known as the Commercial Hotel and spent many decades named the South End Hotel. First licensed in 1855, the hotel is now 163 years old. This hotel was also held and run by the Gianetto family. The Overway Hotel was originally licensed in 1857 and is 161 years old this year. The hotel has held many names and the business is currently under contract to be sold. This hotel licence was granted in Bassett Town, now known as Evanston. The Prince Albert Hotel was a Murray Street hotel when it first granted its licence in 1859 and is 159 years old. This hotel is currently also under contract to be sold. The Criterion Tavern, now affectionately known as the Cry, was also a hotel licence granted in Bassett Town. Its first licence was actually E. Bassett in 1864 and the hotel is now 154 years old. The hotel has been operated by many years by John Kinnear, who also happens to be my uncle. Keeping in the family. The Williston Hotel was originally known as the Victoria Hotel and its licence was granted in 1865. I believe this was Williston's second hotel at the time. The Williston is 153 years old and is currently operated by the ALH Group, which is Australia's largest hotel operator and is a joint partnership between Woolworths and Bruce Matheson. Bruce Matheson also is Australia's largest owner of gaming machine entitlements. 8 Gawler historic hotels closed in the 16 years between 1847 and 1863. By 1870, 16 hotels had been established in Gawler, and some obviously only operating for a very short time. And I saw this photo for the first time while I was researching this address tonight, and you point out to me that's actually Hyde and Partners Medical Centre.
Which pub is that?
The Mill Inn.
Yeah. Yeah, so no wonder I felt good every time I went there being sick, despite being sick, so it's fantastic.
Thirsty when you're going.
The fact that 10 hotels still operate today is remarkable, especially given the current climate for hotels. Gawler has seemingly held on to South Australia's historic and early proliferation of hotels to have such a concentration of pubs in its population and geography. It does show as a community we like to hold on to our history and to ensure that it is very easy to get a drink. The current slide you are now seeing at the back is the back view of the Exchange is my favourite. It shows the hotel in 1902 when the publican was H.W.P. Burden, who only held the hotel for 1 year. Looking at the photo, trade obviously didn't seem an issue, so it leaves me to wonder what he must have left the hotel for other reasons. The bottom photo you see now is the oldest known photo of the Exchange. As you can see, it is a part single-storey dwelling. The second story was added in the 1900s. At this time, Gawler was a day trip to Adelaide by horse and cart, and the town needed as many rooms as possible to accommodate overnight visitors. The top photo is a wonderful photo showing the line of horse and carriage in front of the hotel. I only assume that this photo was obviously posed or the hotel was closed as everyone is still on their carts and not inside enjoying a tipple. Taken in 1877, this image shows the hotel still as a single story with the buildings across the road not yet constructed. What are those buildings called again, Brian?
Pile building.
That's right. This photo is unique as it's been taken from an elevated positioning from obviously in a mill. The hotel was owned at this time by F. Frankel, who ran the hotel for 4 years. A couple of interesting bunyip articles. The first piece of newspaper history on your left again involved F. Frankel and his installation of a flagstaff made of one piece of bastard gum sourced at Gamaraka. The time references the late 1870s. The second piece of newspaper history shows notification of the landlord developing a second story to the hotel. Of note, Taylor and Forgy, a famous name in current Gawler business, were entrusted to carry out the work of building the second story. If we renovate the hotel again, they're probably not going to win the tender this time, just to let you know. I'm unsure of the accuracy of this image, and it's been questioned many times. But the notes accompanying the picture say that it's assumed that it is the interior of the Exchange. If it is indeed the Exchange, it's probably what I can find, the only internal picture of the period, which is such a shame. We've got all these magnificent photos of hotels and of the Exchange Hotel, but we've never found anything inside, which is truly, truly unfortunate. If you can see how the publican and his worker are dressed, very, very dandy, to be the word. This is an early picture of Murray Street looking south, and there's a number of different forms of these pictures. I'm unsure of the exact timings, but the publican at the time was either H.B. Nemke or Chas Nessie. This is a much-seen photo laying terracotta drains, they are, in Murray Street looking south. It's great to see a photo of men working during this period rather than a pose shot, which we often see for these sort of period shots. It's also amazing looking at the monument and how it hasn't seemingly changed at all. It's still shaped today, not damaged, fantastic. I don't know if it's been repaired many times.
Been cleaned.
Yeah, I hope it would have been cleaned, absolutely.
Yeah. 8 years ago.
It's been damaged and carried.
This is another picture of Murray Street looking south. Of interest, when we approached the council about street coverage for our Murray's Barbecue and Bar restaurant some years ago, we didn't progress due to heritage concerns. This picture clearly depicts a veranda in front of the building, which in time we believe we will look to replicate. So this is the picture here, so we'll knock back originally in terms of trying to put something out the front of the restaurant. If we had this photo at the time, it would have been fantastic to take in, to say, hey, we are actually looking to, to work with our heritage and work with the history to have it. If you've ever been in the restaurant and sitting in that front table on a 40-degree day, you actually get a free little thing of sunblock to go with your schnitzel. Another picture of Murray Street looking south in 1907. The hotel's publican at this time was Joseph Michael Howard, who ran the hotel for 16 years, making him one of the hotel's longest standing publicans in its history. Mr. Howard was indeed a very interesting publican. His brother was also a publican in Adelaide, and both men had shares in the now defunct Walkerville Brewery in the 1910s. The Walkerville Brewery was in time bought by West End and part of the Lion Nathan Group now, and they still hold the heritage brand as a part of their brand equity. In late May, I was sent this photo, which I hadn't seen before, by Brian Tom. We posted this historic photo of the exchange, which was circa 1877-1881, on the June 1st on our hotel's Facebook page. Our current Facebook account is one of the largest for a suburban hotel in South Australia, where we have nearly 10,000 likes or followers. We posted the photo on June 1st and it reached 4,744 of our followers in a 36-hour period. We had 251 direct reactions, that's people clicking, writing a comment or sharing. Just quietly, we also had to delete 3 negative or derogatory comments. I just barred a whole lot of patrons a couple of weeks before, and I think they wanted to vent. I didn't think it was appropriate that they vented. It was such a beautiful photo. It's amazing the interest that these photos invoke in the younger generation, and the amount. We went into who actually had a look at this, and it was 50% females who clicked on it and liked under the age of 25. So the younger generation are truly interested. We just need to speak to them in a platform which they understand so we can communicate with them. This is my, and they're hard to read obviously, but this is my, the most fascinating slide to me. The hotel has had an astonishing 31 publicans in its 150-year history. Only 7 publicans have lasted more than 5 years tenure, and I can proudly say that I am now part of that select group. The hotel was held longest by Edith Mulligan, who ran the hotel for 24 years. But in truth, she was at the hotel for much longer, and her husband Joseph was the publican for 15 years before he passed. So all up, Edith Mulligan was at the hotel for 39 years. What a ride. More recent publicans, Scott and Di Fraser, hold the honour of having the second longest tenure of 18 years. 18? While C.J. Lucas held the hotel for 16 years, commencing in 1886, which was very much an achievement for that period. Our friend, the Walkerville Brewery shareholder Joseph Howard, also held the hotel for 16 years to round out the top 5 publicans who held the longest tenures in the hotel's history. As mentioned, the Mulligans held the hotel for the longest period. The Mulligan family lived in the basement in quite spacious surroundings. It was unheard of to have basement dwellings of a bedroom for Clarence and Edith, a kitchen, and a large dining or lounge room. Sadly, Clarence died at the hotel in 1940. And trust me when I say that we feel his presence late at night at the hotel, which can be a little scary when you're alone and dark. Things do go bang in the night. From 1940, Edith Mulligan ran the hotel with her son Doug, who also lost his life unfortunately in a car accident on One Tree Hill Road. Edith Mulligan must have been one very, very tough lady. The time under the Mulligans also saw the dissolution of the upstairs accommodation as fire safety regulations came in and the hotel did not have a fire escape. Coincidentally, the hotel still fields 1 or 2 phone calls a week asking we have rooms for rent. The Mulligans also used the basement for commercial purposes as well as for living. Whilst one half of the basement was living quarters, the other half of the basement was the cellar, a small brewery and a baking house. The hotel brewed and sold their own beer. All that remains of that beer is a single bottle label. There is a famous story of Mrs. Mulligan. Many men worked in the tube mills and needed to catch the train from Gawler to Adelaide at 5:30 a.m. Trains did not have the luxury of air conditioning, obviously, in those days. The story goes that Mrs. Mulligan used to open illegally at 5 a.m. and the men bought what was known as a 4-penny dark, which we assume was port, before they headed to the train station. Tonight I have taken the liberty of providing a 4-penny dark. Please pass this around.
I'm not allowed to swig.
You're not allowed to swig, but have a little sniff. Great fun researching that. You get a real coffee.
What, is it a real recipe that was well known?
There are a number of different recipes.
So was it sold like that?
What's
I
that?
assumed it was in a pony glass.
Yeah.
It was sold like that.
There was actually jars.
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 Moonshine.
Jars, that's right. This one may have a bit of mistruth, but Howard Nottage was the Exchange Hotel publican from 1971 to 1978. There was at the time a famous wheelbarrow race from the Exchange Hotel to the Southend Hotel. One year Howard had the starting pistol, which many rumoured to be he was carrying a shotgun. The gun discharged suddenly and unexpectedly while he was standing under the hotel veranda. Hence the gunshot blew a big hole in the veranda floor. Maybe a tall story, maybe truth. I guess some of us know, and guess some of us will
I
never
think
know.
it's true. But whether it was Howard.
Peter Holness was a large-than-life local figure who was well known for running a few Gawler hotels. His tenure at the Exchange as the Exchange Hotel publican lasted 4 years, from 1981 to 1985, but they were very significant. He was responsible for much structural change. Peter renovated the inside of the hotel, removing internal walls to create one central bar which you see today. The mixed bar and the ladies' bar were no more. Peter also acquired the adjoining motorcycle shop known as Murray's Motorcycles to create a retail bottle shop. To let you know, our restaurant now, known as Murray's Barbecue and Bar, is actually named after Murray's Motorcycles, while many people believe it was named after Murray Street. Peter, as many people may or may not know, was a former bookmaker and very much involved in the horses. He was also rumoured, and I do say rumoured for legal purposes, to be running an illegal book at the hotel on Saturdays. I really wanted to diligently check out this piece of information. So I researched and asked the former employee, Mr. Lee Clifton, who worked for him at the hotel at the time. His answer was, 1 book? Try 5 books. You can get a bet on anything in that place. Peter's time at the hotel also started the long association with the Williston Football Club, a strong association that still lasts to this day. Although we now sponsor 21 different sporting clubs in the community, including most Gawler football clubs in some format. Our final publican spotlight is Scott and Di Fraser, who held the licence of the hotel from 1985 to 2004. As I just mentioned, the rumour of an illegal book from Peter Holness at the hotel may have been true, but this was quickly stopped given Scott Fraser was formerly a police officer. The Frasers made an immediate impact at the hotel and painted the inside of the bar pink, including a large cutout of the Pink Panther on the wall. Quickly the hotel became known as the Pink Panther Bar. During his tenure, Scott would quite often open a bottle of red he enjoyed sharing with his favourite customers. He would share this red wine with regulars, most often during the free barbecue on Friday nights. The makers of this wine entered the product into the annual National Wine Awards, and in Scott's exact words, some mongrel made this wine of the year. The new national exposure of this wine caused the price to skyrocket. Scott didn't have much stock left and he couldn't afford to buy any more. That wine was Henschke's Hill of Grace, now considered in the top 5 most valuable wine brands in Australia. Scott and Diane Fraser also had one of the biggest hotel social groups in South Australian history, with at times over 200 members, which is astonishing given what was considered a very small hotel. and even more astonishing given the hotel licence at the time was 70, 80 in terms of capacity at that time, I think. Yeah.
It was often more than that.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. The social club was very, very popular due to the many events, with trips like boat excursions, weekends in Wentworth, day trips to Monarto, and Christmas parties at the racecourse. I remember one Christmas party in particular, which was held in Pioneer Park, and again I thought I was in heaven. Unlimited free Coke for a 15-year-old kid. It was fantastic. Also during the Fraser years, the first tour down under finished at Pioneer Park, and the bikes actually had to ride through the drive-through area, which is now the deck. The venue was truly pumping. Film crews on the balcony, support people, plus the locals ensured that a few months of takings were seen in that one day. The Exchange was really the place to be on a Friday to end your working week in the 1980s and the early 90s. The picture you see up now of Scott and local artists, which we all should know, George Aldridge, is significant. George would often get out his scrapbook and draw pictures of regulars to display on the hotel walls. Scott was also famous for his Friday night shenanigans. One Friday night there were some regular businessmen that came into the bar, and one in particular, a very young Danny Dare, looked stressed after a bad day. Scott suggested that he may feel better if he took his tie off, but Danny insisted he was fine. This wasn't good enough for Scott, so he quickly went to the office and took a pair of scissors and cut his tie off. Little did Scott know that this tie was actually a birthday present from Danny's wife that very week. Scott, being Scott, quickly said he would fix it for him, so he went back into the office and came out with a stapler and joined it back together. 2 weeks later, that very same group of businessmen came back with all their ties cut off, which is the picture you see up on the screen. They certainly don't make publicans like they used to, and Scott was clearly the epitome of what a good publican should be. Sadly, gone are the days when you could always walk into a hotel and see the publican behind the bar. The industry has indeed changed, and it's sad to think stories such as these are becoming fewer as time continues. The last image on Scott and Di Fraser's tenure was taken on the night of the first poker machines arrived in Gawler. The Gawler Exchange was issued with 6 machines initially due to the small room size. Scott and Di prepared for the first night with much fanfare and was hoping for one of the biggest parties the hotel in Gawler had ever seen. Unfortunately, there was a last-minute delay and the machines did not arrive, but good old George Aldridge was on hand to build a cardboard poker machine to help compensate. Another example of the camaraderie and the frivolity of the time. The images you see before you now show the famous ovens down in the basement of the hotel, and I took these pictures just a couple of days ago. The first oven used on the left was the actual baking house used by the Mulligans during their tenure. The second oven picture was in the family kitchen. Obviously and ideally we would love to display these items, but the positioning in the basement doesn't allow us to do so. But we are looking to get some expert photography done so we can put them on the screens throughout the venue. They really are unique. The lounge area display cabinet image was also taken during the week, and this display cabinet was in a very expansive lounge or dining room. We try and stay out of the basement areas where possible, but the areas now is used for audio-visual equipment, cool room, general storage, as well as the storage of the beer and soft drink reticulation systems. The hotel is also unique now. The Exchange still to this day searches for a point of difference to bring people to the hotel. Now we have a roof garden overlooking the beautiful Pioneer Park. We're also one of 5 venues in South Australia to store and serve unpasteurised tank beer. We also have 22 different beers and ciders on tap, which is a far cry from the early years when only 1 or 2 variants of tap beer were normal. During our renovation, we restored the pit that was used for Murray's motorcycles in the 1980s. We had a 1980s replica speedway racer donated to us by Bills, Bits and Bikes in Birdwood. Try saying that after a few beers.
Okay, thank you.
The major refurbishment in 2015 was the biggest structural event in the hotel's history. The first full commercial kitchen in the hotel's history saw us make 52,610 meals last financial year. Of interest also, for the first time in the hotel's history, the front facade of the hotel was taken back to its original stone. Even during the original construction, the hotel front has always been painted. And what a story it tells of filled-in doorways, half windows. If you have a chance to walk past the hotel, please have a look. The first time in its history back to original stone, which is truly significant. What about the future? We're in current negotiation with the building owner discussing further redevelopment and expansion. We have a combined vision of ensuring that the hotel is one of the best in South Australia, so watch this space. The hotel industry, particularly in South Australia, is facing many, many challenges, and Gawler hotels are very much exposed to this. There continues to be a proliferation of hotels in the town versus its population, despite our local area and its surrounds enjoying a growth rate which is the envy of many other areas. The growing movement of health consciousness is great for our society, but not so good for pubs. Discretionary dollars continue to dwindle, and spending that money on a night out at the local hotel, which was once a given, is now a much rarer occurrence. We have a wonderful array of history for all Gawler hotels. We are still distinctively placed to promote all 10 of our hotels as a feature of Gawler to try and bring people to our town. How do we do this? I'm not sure. Attaining a collaborative effort from all the hoteliers would be the key, along with the buy-in from all community stakeholders, including yourselves. Indeed, it is a challenge for us all. And I give an example where on the June long weekend, I travelled down with my family to Harndorf on Sunday. It took us 15 minutes to line up in a car. Every food and beverage outlet had a line up to get in at 20 to 1 in the afternoon. Harndorf is not more historic than Gawler. So this is our challenge. It's our challenge as a community. But we all must agree and work together to make it happen. Thank you for your time tonight. I feel very honoured. I have truly been the beneficiary of this exercise. I hope I have done the past publicans of the hotel proud as we continue to make history of the hotel. Thank you very much, and if anyone's got any questions, I'll be happy to refer to Di.
Margaret.
I'd just like to add something to your history.
Fantastic.
The criterion
Yes.
was originally the engine and driver. It was 1864 when the name was changed.
Oh, wow.
And I've only researched that within the last 2 weeks.
Oh, fantastic.
Because the criterion is planning 160 years celebration.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
So the engine and driver actually was the original name and it was changed in 1864.
Yeah, well, I saw the engine and driver in a lot of the data, and
Yes.
but I couldn't specify to which hotel it was. Obviously, I knew it had to be near a train station. So. Yeah, that's excellent.
Questions?
You didn't comment on why the name is Exchange and what we exchange.
That's because I don't know.
Oh, I've always understood that you rode from Adelaide and your horse needed, the horse was tired, and so you could exchange your horse.
Well, there were obviously a number of stables and at the back, and the licences which were granted at the time need to have provisions and hay for horses to stables. That was a part of granting a hotel licence, so that may in fact be true.
No, I've no evidence for it, it's
Yeah.
just what I've understood. The second thing is that because of the cemetery, like Pioneer Park was a cemetery,
Yes.
when I came here in the 70s, the kids had great stories about ghosts and being able to see
Yes,
the names.
there's still a couple of headstones which stick out in your retaining wall at the back today, which is
there.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And our best-selling burger at the hotel, we've aptly named the Gravediggers Burger
Well done.
because the cemetery's so close.
Question, Cody.
Yeah, so the pokies have been sort of controversial over the years. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on how to ethically, I guess, run a pokies and all of that, topic.
Well, it's a very interesting question. You get different answers. In the hotels that have no pokies tend to take a moral high ground. hotel like mine that has only a very limited amount of pokies sits in the middle. People that have a number of hotel pokies say that they're the saviour of the industry. It's a little bit of everything, to be honest. Like any form of entertainment, people deserve the right to spend the money how they wish, and if they wish to be entertained by gaming machines, then that's their prerogative. It has saved many hotels. Has it hurt live music and entertainment? Maybe. Would we see less hotels in South Australia today if it wasn't for poker machines? We most definitely would. Is that a bad thing? Who knows about that as well? You know, one thing I will say about the poker machines in hotels, there's not a gambling format in Australia which is more legislated or regulated than gaming machines in hotels. When people take moral high grounds and saying gambling is bad, we should be talking about online apps and betting, which has no regulation. Every staff member in a gaming machine or hotel is utterly trained to intervene when they see a problem gambling in the venue. A very, very interesting question.
John?
I'd like to add a little bit to your SP bookie history. Nance, my wife, her grandmother lived on the other side of Pioneer Park and Union Street. And an uncle and auntie of mine lived there as well. And I used to stay there a lot. And so the exchange was our local watering hole. Anyhow, we would go, my uncle and that would go over there Saturday afternoon, and you're talking about the bookie who will remain nameless.
Yes.
But needless to say, he came from Williston.
Yes.
He would be sitting on his stool and he'd keep his book underneath his butt. Anyhow, the police came in and confiscated his book. I don't know whether he got pinched or what happened there. But anyhow, next Saturday he's sitting on his stool and the coppers come in, go to swipe his book, no book at all. He kept it all up here, and Saturday afternoon that pub was really busy, and yet we never saw one fight for the discrepancy.
If only it was the same now.
Yeah. The other thing is, you're talking about Mrs. Mulligan before. We would, at the last drink of the day, the 6 o'clock swill, she would shout a round of drinks. And those of us who'd served our apprenticeship, we would get rotten because a lot of these people had come in at 6 o'clock just to budge on it, you know.
Yeah, I bet.
So things got pretty heated at one stage.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'd like to bring up, of course I was 18.
You have to be 21.
Isn't that funny? It's against the law to get free alcohol, basically these days.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Yes, Paul.
Does the foodies like Woolworths, etc., getting involved in hotels change the whole politic of the whole thing? Has it made it
Yes,
hard?
amongst us single hotel owners and Tony, Phil's father may say, we consider the ALH the McDonald's of the industry, but everyone eats McDonald's. You see what they're doing at the moment. It is truly geared around gaming, but they do offer some entertainment. But I heard one of the ALH hotels is the Highbury Hotel, obviously in Highbury. Today on the radio they're advertising a $7 hamburger and a pint of beer. And we can't make that for that much. We can't even get close to making it for that much. Saying that, Bruce Matheson, who owns all the hotel licenses, is a self-made man. So congratulations to him on being utterly successful.
One more question. Are you going to open up the wheelbarrow race again?
Town of Gawler may have something. Town of Gawler may have something to say with that, and I know shotguns.
Yes.
If I remember rightly, Donny Window poked a pea with his nose from the Exchange Hotel right down to the bottom of the street on Saturday morning.
I did hear that.
Wow.
It took
More
a
history.
couple of hours to do it, you know, most of the time. So sore nose
You should try that these days. You could pretty get locked up pretty quickly.
And another question, bottle shops,
Yes.
are they competing against you?
Again, you look at Dan Murphy's, again, owned by Woolworths, and the big warehouse, you know, the big warehouse formats which are coming now, making standalone bottle shops very, very difficult. Bottle shops have always been a much lower margin. You know, obviously, I have an intimate knowledge of what breweries make off beer compared to what, you know, the retailer makes off beer, and the breweries make around $2 a litre. And to give you an example, a carton of beer selling at the Kingswood Hill drive-through, they're probably making around $2.50 or $3. You know, for the whole carton, you know, which is 9 litres. So it is a very much of a skewed system. Saying that, it's up to hotels to continue to develop themselves and want customers to come in. At the end of the day, the customer decides where they want to shop and what they want to do, and it's up to us to remain relevant.
Is this to do with drink driving law, people are buying them, taking them home?
Oh yeah, it's really expensive. I mean, even in when people were really drinking pints in the 80s, where they died, but a schooner of beer in the 80s, $1.50, $2.
I remember them being 80 cents.
There you go. Di remembers them being 80 cents.
Not at the exchange.
Yeah. Our average price for a pint of beer is $8.20. You can buy a carton of beer of imported beer like Corona from Dan Murphy's for under $50.
Graham.
I knew Howard Nottage before he came up here. Howard used to run the airfield taxis.
Oh wow.
I can just imagine him getting involved with a wheelbarrow race.
Did he carry a gun in the taxis with him as well?
Not that I really.
Oh well, it would have been an interesting ride, that's for sure.
Ros?
No, I was just going to say I've got a photo at Donny window because he's my cousin,
Wow.
hoping that pushing this pea or whatever it was up there. It was for a bet.
Be good to have them.
Do we know what the bet was?
I
think it was something to do with football.
It was football, yeah. They certain club won by a certain margin.
Okay.
He took the plunge and said, "I'll push the pea down to south end."
That would have meant Williston would have lost, I sure.
No, Williston were 11 all.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Ray?
Just a quick one. The lady there brought up about why they call it exchange.
Yes.
And I recollect reading something that said that it was called exchange because the drivers bringing their gear down from the north, the wheat and everything, did their exchange in an area there and they drank there.
Okay, yeah.
My understanding was that was why they called it exchange.
Sounds really logical.
Yeah, most regional towns have an exchange hotel.
Yeah, I think that at one stage there were 23 exchange hotels.
All right.
And now there's 5 or 6 in South Australia now that might be known as Royal Exchanges or something like things like that.
No other questions?
Yeah.
Yes?
Did you come across any photos of the stables and the yards there where they had the horses?
I saw one, but there was no way I could ascertain it for its accuracy. It could have been anywhere. And because the type line to it was stables of a Gawler hotel, and I didn't want to embellish too much because some of the stories may have a bit of mayo on them.
Some of the school children from out of the area used to leave their ponies there and then walk down to the primary school.
Oh, hopefully they won't walk into the hotel.
Then go back to the exchange yard, saddle up and ride 5 or 6 miles home again.
Yeah, I truly wish that there were more, and maybe there's an opportunity again in future years to present to this team again. We can truly try and find some more photos somewhere.
Roger, would you do the honours, please, of giving a vote of thanks to Damien?
Yes, Damien.
You take the button.
I'll get that in a minute.
All right.
Remember the hotel the first time on June the 22nd, I think it was, when Mum was taking me home on the horse and cart from the hospital, and apparently I cried all the way down the Lindock Hill, past the hotel, and around the railway station, and I got to Williston Bridge, and then I calmed down, and it was all sad. And I don't think I'd been to the exchange until we came into they got married and came over the bridge and migrated into Gawler. Williston was mine, so apart from knowing a few people who've dreamt about it, don't know much about the history. But what you've presented tonight is really taken a great effort, and we really appreciate the time and effort you've put into it, and it was a really wonderful talk on the hotel and its history. And what I am really pleased to see what your outlook for the hotel in the future and how you want to try and get it in and get Gawler going. So on behalf of the gathering here tonight, I would like to give you this presentation in thanks for your work and effort in this talk.
All right.